Good evening, everyone. I would like to call this meeting of the Huntersville Town Board to order. Before we get started, please take your phone out. Make sure that it is on vibrate or off. We will do the same up here, and that way it will not disrupt our meeting. Now, if you will please join us for a moment of silence. Thank you. Now, if you will please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We are at the point of the meeting. Board members, are there any questions for staff? Seeing none, we will now move into public comments, requests, and presentations. The first item is a presentation of the police awards. Major Graham, will you please join me? Honor to be able to host and present these awards. We will be presenting a police commendation along with two life-saving awards this evening. First one is for Officer Juan Garay. In late November of 2022, the Huntersville police officers were dispatched to serve an involuntary commitment related to a female suffering a mental health crisis. When officers arrived at her home, they located her sitting on the roof of her house and refusing to come down. After an hour and a half of negotiations and the female becoming hostile toward her family, medic personnel, and other officers on scene, Officer Juan Garay put himself in harm's way by gaining access to the roof. Officer Garay is a crisis intervention trained officer and used his training and experience to connect with the female through de-escalation techniques to resolve this volatile situation peacefully. Officer Garay demonstrated a high degree of professional excellence during this incident and is therefore awarded a police commendation. Is that it? It is it? Perfect. Sir? I have to say, we have an incredible police department. Now then, if Officer Mark Guerrero, I knew I was going to miss it, Officer Mark Gallo and Officer Carrington McLeary would come forward. In February of this year, Huntersville police officers were dispatched to a possible opiate overdose at the 1400 block of Beatty'sford Road. When officers arrived, they discovered the patient unconscious and recognized the signs of a possible opiate overdose. Officer Mark Guerrero, again, I'm gonna butcher it, dude, I'm so sorry. I'm terrible. Officer Mark, I like that, and Officer Carrington McLeary quickly began life-saving efforts by administering Narcan. After this initial dose, the patient positively responded and regained consciousness. The administration of Narcan gave enough time for a medic to arrive and eventually transport the patient to a local medical facility for treatment. Because of these two officers' actions, they are being awarded the Police Life-Saving Award. Let's go this way and we're gonna get some pictures. You wanna be on the visitor too? Come on, let's go. Let's go make that happen. I have to say, our police department don't give these awards out just willy-nilly and freely. So when we do these, it's very sobering for all of us, and to also, again, remember how wonderful our officers are that take care of us and watch over us each and every day, even when we don't think about them. They're there. All right. The next item on the agenda, we have no present requests, but we do have a stack here of public comment, public comments. Did anyone else sign up after I got this stack? Just to make sure. They were going to bring them. Okay. Well, the first person who has signed up to speak is Frank Gammon. Mr. Gammon, as you come, you have 3 minutes, and if you'll please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Frank Gammon. I live at 8912 Deerline Court in the town of Huntersville. Thank you, Madam Mayor, Commissioners, fellow citizens of Huntersville and Cornelius. I'm here to talk about Colonial Pipeline. Everybody else can talk about Burkdale tonight. I've had my say. After attending the pipeline public hearing last Thursday, I have a recommendation for them, Colonial that is. They can take that treatment plant and add a water treatment plant to it, purification portion. They can bottle it. They can label it Colonial Pipeline Reserve, and they can give it to their families and their children and their employees, instead of dumping it in our creeks.
Thank you, sir. The next person who has signed up to speak is Marlon Viller. Mr. Viller, as you come, you have 3 minutes, and if you'll state your name and address for the record, and make sure that to speak into the microphone so we can hear you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting us to be here tonight. Good evening. I am Merlin Viller. I live at 17130 Bridgeton Lane in Huntersville. I want to thank you for your careful consideration of the comments from constituents over the last 6 months about the issues in Birkdale Village. I'll be brief because I know you've heard what we are going to outline to you in the past. We hate to repeat ourselves, but we just want to emphasize how we feel about this. I would simply like to say that I know that NAP has also heard all of the same input from residents and guests, yet NAP has mostly ignored the complaints about parking, traffic, safety, and unfinished projects, and nothing has actually improved. So as both a resident and a frequent guest in the village, I'd like to state that I am opposed to petition R2201 as submitted, but I am not against development. I support responsible rezoning that respects the character of the village and the town while providing a pleasant traffic and parking experience for customers so that businesses succeed and Birkdale Village can continue to be a prime destination for the Lake Norman community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next person who is signed up to speak is Nick O'Shaughnessy. Mr. O'Shaughnessy, as you come, You have 3 minutes, and if you'll state your name and address for the record, greatly appreciated.
Madam Mayor, Town Commissioners, Nick O'Shaughnessy, 8217 Parkton Gate Drive, Huntersville. Thank you for the last 6 months of your diligence, your patience. You'll be glad to know I don't have the model with me tonight. The courtesy that you've awarded us all, we appreciate that. You may have concluded over the last 6 months that I do not support the rezoning petition 2201. I am, however, in favour of responsibly scaled, complementarily designed development that also addresses the current traffic and parking issues that the village has right now. It is an iconic village with an ambience that is unique, slightly changed in the past few months, but it is an experience that Birkdale is renowned for, regionally, nationally. We would hope that your decision tonight would help that be maintained. And I thank you for your consideration and courtesy and patience listening to my ramblings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The next person who is signed up to speak is Isidore Zarzadius. If you'll please come up to the microphone here to your left, and you have 3 minutes, and please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Izzy Zarzadius. I live at 17303 Inglewood Lane, Huntersville, 28078. Your Honor, Mayor, sirs and Madam Commissioners, thank you for the time and effort you put not only in this, but in what you do behind closed doors and countless hours. I know it's a thankless job, so thank you. Again, my name is Izzy Zarzadius. I've seen Brookdale Village develop from a cow pasture and a picture on a piece of wood into this amazing asset we have. It's known for its character, its accessibility, its walkability. Developers, city planners come to visit Brookdale Village to see and try to capture what we have, this asset in Brookdale Village, so they can develop that and capture it in their own town. You're going to be asked to vote on some plans put before you. They are big, they are bold, and they promise big things for the village and for Huntersville. And while I believe their intent is sincere, I think it fails to honor what your predecessors have so carefully planned and cultivated in Brookdale Village. We have big in Concord Mills. We have better in North Lake Mall. What North American Properties is trying to do is, it reminds me of when I was a high school student. My favorite meal was chicken nuggets and Coke. It was the mid-'80s. Coca-Cola wanted to be bigger. They wanted to be better. They wanted to generate more revenue than Pepsi, so they introduced New Coke. It failed. In 3 months, it failed. And within 3 months, they discovered people didn't want bigger. They didn't want better. They wanted the original recipe. They wanted the nostalgia. They want what we have in Brookdale Village. They want that accessibility. They want the character. They want the walkability. They want what brought us all here today to live in this area. When you look at Dick's, for instance, they had 2 stores. They wanted to close one. They didn't close the small one. They closed the bigger one. Regal Cinemas has properties and theaters all over the nation. They're keeping this one because it just performs. When you're asked to vote upon this project, I am not anti-North American Properties. I am for maintaining the character of Brookdale Village so that it's not for me, it's for my kids, your kids, their grandkids, so that they can see how we live, they can enjoy how we live, they can enjoy the nostalgia, and that's what creates revenue. That's what maintains our property values. And that's what I ask that you consider when you vote. Look at your predecessors, look what they've cultivated, and vote for the future of the village for our kids so they can prosper here in Huntersville and in the region. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person who has signed up to speak is Suzanne Viller. Ms. Viller, as you come, you have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening again, Mayor Bales and Commissioners. I'm Suzanne Viller, and I live at 17130 Bridgeton Lane in Huntersville. I want to thank you for listening carefully as residents and guests have outlined the many issues encountered within NAP's Birkdale Village. As you consider your vote tonight, I'd ask you to imagine this scenario. If you needed a home renovation and hired a contractor that did shoddy work, walked off the job before it was completed, left your yard unsafe, destroyed your entranceway, and did no work for months, would you give that contractor more and bigger projects to work on around your house? I know I would not. So, as a resident and as a daily guest in the village, I'd like to state that I am opposed to North American Properties Petition R2201 as it was submitted, but I'm not against development. I don't think many of us are. I support responsible rezoning that respects the character of the village and the town while providing a pleasant traffic, parking, and visitor experience for customers. I want village businesses to succeed so that Birkdale Village can continue to be a prime destination in the Lake Norman community. Thank you for hearing us tonight, and thank you for all you do for the community.
Thank you. The next person who has signed up to speak is David Shore. As you come, you have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
David Cher, 17142 Pennington Drive, Birkdale Village. There are approximately 500 homes in Birkdale Village, and all were purchased under the current zoning. A vote in favor of rezoning would invalidate the criteria used by existing homeowners when they made their purchase. This could raise concerns in future home buyers to look elsewhere if they are nervous about zoning that could change on their purchase as well. Does the town board favor an out-of-state company whose only presence in Huntersville, let alone North Carolina, is via assets on its balance sheet? It's disconcerting that NAP's balance sheet would be given a higher priority than the valid concerns of residents, constituents, and taxpayers. Has North American Properties even proven themselves to be a trusted community partner? Are you in favor of rezoning so much that you are willing to counter the recommendations of the planning staff and planning board? Have all safety, infrastructure, and financial aspects of the project been vetted and addressed? Have you heard about the meandering route fire trucks had to take recently to respond to a call at the Cheesecake Factory worksite? I want to pull this out one more time. We talked about this before, the current heights of the buildings, middle pencil being what is proposed. This pencil doesn't belong in our village. I am opposed to petition R2201 as submitted, but I am not against development. I support responsible rezoning that respects the character of the village and the town and provides a good traffic and parking experience for customers of the village so that businesses can succeed and Birkdale Village can continue to be a prime destination for the Lake Norman community. Thank you. Happy first day of spring, and it was great to be here for the police awards.
The next person who has signed up to speak is Kim DeBenedictis. The next person who has signed up to speak is Kim De Benedictus. Is she coming? Thank you. Good evening. As you come, you have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record and speak into the microphone, please, so that all can hear.
My name is Kim De Benedictus, and I live at 8814 Camberley Road, Huntersville, North Carolina, and an OG of the village. Loved all of my years up until now, and now I'm a little concerned. But I do thank you, and I want to say thank you so much, because I know this has been a very long 6 months or so of all of your time, listening to all of us and our concerns, and I know it's a lot of work on your end. So just thank you so much, all of you. I am definitely opposed to the bill that we're voting on. I'm not opposed to developing as long as it's responsible and respectful. I just want to mention that if this was to be passed, there's no going back, because once the buildings are built, skyscraper height, I mean, that's what it feels like. It's going to be New York City. I don't know. So I'm a little bit exaggerating, but it's what it feels like. And once it's built, it's like that forever. And our sweet village will be no more. It'll be just over and done with. So please take note that both Cornelius and Davidson have listened to their citizens and protected their towns and turned down overdevelopment. And I just really hope and pray that you will do the same for Huntersville and keep the crown jewel, Birkdale Village. Some things are meant to remain classic, and I think that's it. So thank you so much. I'm sorry that I was running late.
Thank you. The next person who has signed up to speak is Earl Genois. Mr. Genois, as you come, you have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Errol Genois, 8537 Camberley Road. I remain positive about Birkdale Village. Thank you for reading all my emails and listening to my concerns. I oppose petition R2201 as submitted, but I am not against development. I support responsible rezoning that respects the character of the village and the town and provides a good traffic and parking experience for customers of the village so that businesses succeed and Birkdale Village can continue to be a prime destination for the Lake Norman community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The next person who has signed up to speak is Leslie Williams. Ms. Williams, as you come, you have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Leslie Williams. I'm sorry, I have a little bit of laryngitis, so I hope you can hear me. I live in the Cape Residency in Huntersville. I've lived there for over 18 years, approximately 10 minutes from Birkdale, 28078 Huntersville address. Again, like everybody else, I appreciate the work everybody has put into these discussions. It's a huge decision, and the message it will send is immense. Unfortunately, all too often retail malls and strip centers become stale because the all-important constant foot traffic is not there. The town is then just left with developer who will take any tenant just to fill a space and get rent without concern for the needs and hopes of consumers. We've all witnessed it. Thanks to the investments to date by North American Properties, what has transpired at Birkdale is wonderful. It's still a work in progress. It's not a residential property. This is a huge development. I know just from doing improvements in my own home, the delays that have been caused by raw materials, by processes. This is not, and the weather that they have to experience. They can't work 24/7. They're doing a great job, and I really want to keep this momentum going to maintain the success of Birkdale for now and for our children. My concern at Birkdale is predominantly parking, or lack thereof. especially at weekends and holidays. And myself and many other friends and family have almost given up on going to Birkdale during these times. And I certainly don't want to have to go down I-77 to South Park for the stores we finally have on our doorstep, thanks to North American Properties. But as we know, there is no such thing as a free lunch, and in order to build the much-needed parking, there has to be a mechanism to recover the costs. The win-win for everybody is the Class A office space, desperately lacking in Huntersville and Cornelius, office tenants to absorb the cost of the parking deck for the benefit of the retail consumers. Traffic doesn't belong on the main retail area. It's unsafe and unpleasant. Parking your vehicle and walking around the stores is fun. We just need more parking, and the parking deck is an ideal option. Birkdale is an existing real estate. What's less desirable to me is the continuation of urban sprawl and high-density housing on greenfields and farmland. The 241 apartments planned for the other side of Highway 73, the 725 townhomes and condos and apartments planned for a 70-acre greenfield site, Town 1 off Hambright Road. We all appreciate traffic is a problem, but when you have a lake the size of Lake Norman with no crossings west to east other than Highway 73, and the amount of greenfield development in the area, you've got a problem. I have heard, finally, many of the planning and town board members are in favor of the Class A office space and parking deck, but the process is the problem. Whose process? I believe the legal
Thank you, Ms.
department have already
Williams.
told
Your
you
time
can
is up.
vote on the process that's in front of you. So
Thank you,
please
Ms.
do.
Williams. Your time is
Thank you.
up. Ms.
Sorry, my laryngitis dragged me down a little.
Jon Snow is the next person who has signed up to speak. Ms. Snow, as you come, if you'll please state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Jon Snow, 8132 Evanston Falls Road, Huntersville. First of all, I want to thank all of you for your patience and hearing us over the last 6 months. It's been a long 6 months. By now, you are very familiar with all our concerns and the reasons I have opposed this rezoning, so I'm not going to rehash all those again. An NAP representative previously made a statement about people being fearful of change. I am not against change or development, and I am not a NIMBY. I am opposed to the current proposal as submitted because it's not the right change for all the reasons that you've been hearing over the last many months. The fear of change is also overcome with trust. There are too many loose ends in Phase 1 with workmanship issues, unfinished and vacant buildings, a broken fountain, and unaddressed traffic and parking problems, which have been made worse by the decisions of NAP, such as the removal of the street parking and the closing of the Lindholm roundabout. Let's truly finish Phase 1 before any work is ever begun on a second phase of redevelopment. Again, I am opposed to the R2201 proposal as submitted, but I am not against development. I just want responsible rezoning and development that respects the character, the scale, and the aesthetics of the village and provides a good traffic and parking experience for customers so that the village can remain successful and thrive as the Lake Norman gem that it has been for the last 20 years. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. The next person who has signed up to speak is Martin Williams. Mr. Williams, as you come, you have 3 minutes, and if you'll please state your name and address for the record, and also speak into the microphone.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Martin Williams. I live at the Cape, Huntersville, which is approximately 10 minutes from Birkdale. I also have a daughter in Georgia, and we go and visit her very often. We go to a place called Avalon, which is owned by NAP. It's what my daughter used to call Birkdale on steroids, but if you know it and if you've been there, it's a very impressive development. It's very prosperous. It's very busy. And we used to visit that before we knew that NAP was going to invest in Birkdale, but when we found out that that was the case, we were really, really excited. And frankly, having seen what NAP have done so far and what they intend to do, I'm very, very confident that this is going to be a real shot in the arm that Birkdale is going to need. And frankly, when we would visit Birkdale in the past, we'd be very disappointed and frustrated at how quiet, how empty the restaurants and the stores were. And we really believe that this investment is necessary, and it's going to do a great thing for the prosperity of Huntersville. A couple of specific points. The Class A office space and much-needed parking deck is part of this overall investment plan. I don't think you can have one without the other. And I think anybody that would visit NAP's development in Avalon would be very impressed by what they've done there. I'm very confident that what they plan to do here is going to be right, and it's going to be done properly. A couple of specific issues that have been raised as objections. One is traffic. I believe the widening of Sanfur 73 was proposed a long time before Birkdale redevelopment was proposed. And that was in the expectation of significant increase in traffic at Concord, Denver, along the I-73 corridor. Consequently, I believe that any increase in traffic in Birkdale due to this development is going to be a drop in the bucket and negligible in the big scheme of things that are already accommodated and planned for within that I-73, that Highway 73 widening. So I think I'd just like to say in conclusion that the Class A office space is really needed in Huntersville for employment and for increased prosperity. And the developers would not be submitting it in their proposals if that was not the case. It's a bonus for Birkdale that the additional parking will come with this office development. And I urge you to please vote yes for this much-needed development and this forward-looking development for the area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next person who is signed up to speak is Peter Romanello. Mr. Romanello, as you come, you have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Peter Romanello. I live at 15821 Trenton Place Road in Huntersville, 28078. Not going to bore you with rehashing everything we've all presented for the last 7 months, but I just wanted to take a minute and thank all of you up here, all your time, all your effort. This is a super hard decision that you have to make, and in some respects, it's your legacy, right? You're going to look back at this, and you're either going to be happy with your decision or you're not going to be happy with your decision. And your decision affects almost 70,000 people. So regardless of how the decision goes, I hope that all of you will make a concerted effort to put people ahead of profit and respect the wishes of the incredibly strong majority of people who have fought hard to keep the integrity of the crown jewel of Huntersville, which is Birkdale Village. So I am opposed to petition R2201 as submitted, not against development. We've shown that by presenting alternate design ideas. The reality is that there's more than one way to skin a cat. You don't have to do a 110-foot tall building to get an office building. I support responsible rezoning that respects the character of the village and the town, and so that businesses can succeed and the Birkdale Village can continue to be a prime destination for the Lake Norman community. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. The next person who has signed up to speak is, I hope I'm reading this correctly, Shanna Pope. Thank you. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Shanna Pope, 16846 Bridgeton Lane, Huntersville. I want to thank you again, Mayor and Commissioners, with my email and talking last week, as well as everyone else here. Thank you for coming. Because we want change, we just want good change. And however we get there, we're looking at for you to make sure that it's done properly and right. NAP, I'm not against NAP, but what I would like is actually some clarity. I think everyone would like some clarity. We have unfinished buildings that have been sitting for a while, not just a month, not just 2 months. It's not because of weather. And maybe it is. Maybe it's because, you said, permits. But what I have found is that on February 20th, 2023, Goodworks finally just issued on 4 permits. Permit states not finalized. There are also holds from LUESA agency on parcel number 00537-156. Hold reason, work done without an agency permit. I don't need to disclose and define that. I'm sure you guys can figure out what that means. Also, I did find failed inspections that are all public knowledge on a code enforcement. This is all public knowledge. That's just on one parcel. I also heard that cannot even get one of the buildings even insured. Do you see a pattern here? If they can't pull a right permit to start building or how the permit process works, how do we know that they're equipped or educated to hire the correct contractors, subcontractors to get the work done and safe? Because right now, when I walk out there, I feel like I should probably have maybe a hard helmet on, walking around, because those are not safe. I'm not against change, I'm for good change. There's a huge difference. So once again, I'm not for the rezoning and the proposal of R22-01. But once again, I thank you for your time, all your time, and the police and everyone here tonight, because you guys are faces of our future, of our children, right? And even, yes, I've been in Avalon. Was that already a mixed-use space, or did they develop that from ground up, right? I know what Avalon is. I don't want to be Atlanta, Georgia. And that's just my opinion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next person who has signed up to speak is Pat McLean. As you come, if you'll please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Pat McLean. I live at 8103 Parkton Gate Drive in Birkdale. I felt that there were comments made at the last town board meeting praising half the community were meant to divide us. We all live, work, and play here. We take care of each other. I'll bring your packages in. We watch each other's dogs. We really love our community. And whether we all think it needs to be built up, a little renovation, but we just love our community. And whatever you do, how you vote, you affect all of us. And it could change our whole community. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person who has signed up to speak is Catherine Wright. Ms. Wright, as you come, if you'll please state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
I'm Catherine Wright. I live at 8203 Strand Hill Road in Huntersville, North Carolina. Mayor Bells and commissioners, thank you so much for listening to us all these months, and it's a big decision, and we just really are grateful for all your work on it. I wanted to just touch base on a couple of things that came to mind. First of all, I'm not against progress. I was really kind of excited when Lampt started to consider taking over, and I thought things are going to really be kind of freshened up a little bit. I have to admit it's gotten a little bit cluttered looking to me now, and things are unfinished, so I'm a little concerned about that. But more importantly, I'm not really opposed to change, but I am really concerned about this rezoning, R2201, and I hope we can vote against that. I know they'll come back again, and we'll talk about new things later. But I think for right now, my biggest concern is I'm starting to hear more and more sirens at night, sirens during the day. We're growing really rapidly. And the things that concern me is the fact that we had a fire truck that had a hard time accessing part of Birkdale the other day. So it's kind of interesting to me, and the gentleman gave me a fresh thought.
it is kind of like Birkdale on steroids. Is that a positive thing? I'm not thinking that's very positive. That just makes me a little freaked out because we're starting to struggle already with the concerns of safety. And that's going to be a problem going forward with the traffic patterns we have and that will change. And I think we need to really push NCDOT. I hope we can get them to do more than what they're doing ahead because we are an evacuation route. And I know we laugh about that. Oh, there will never be an incident where we have to worry. But when you're having a child maybe up here in Birkdale and you're working in Charlotte and you hear that there's some kind of a disaster that happens, or there's a huge problem like another giant gas leak, and you're worried about your family, what are you going to think about that quagmire that's up here in the village area and you can't get out? And that's what I'm worried about the most. We need to slow down on some of this development until we get NCDOT to do their part better for us and make a way so that we're not trapped in our neighborhoods. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. The next person who has signed up to speak is Kimzarcadius. As you come, you have 3 minutes, and please state your name and address for the record.
Kimzarcadius, 17303 Inglewood Lane in Huntersville. First of all, I want to thank all of you for your attention to our voices over the last 6 or 7 months. Once again, I do oppose the 110-foot high building in Birkdale Village, but I do support responsible development by North American Properties. As a real estate professional, and it is part of my job to promote what is best for my community. There are many concerns throughout the Lake Norman area about the uncertainty brought on by unfinished buildings, unattractive and temporary architecture, empty retail spaces, traffic, and parking in the village. The aesthetics and ambiance of Birkdale Village are important to our patrons and guests, as well as its residents. Contrary to previous comment, it is not an anomaly that Birkdale Village home prices rose significantly from 2019 to 2022. This happened across the country, and in particular, the Charlotte, Huntersville, and Lake Norman area. North American Properties did not make this happen for Birkdale Village. In fact, since the inception of Birkdale Village, homes here have historically outperformed area homes. I am opposing petition R2201 as it is submitted, but am not against development by North American Properties. I support responsible rezoning that respects the original character of the village and town and promotes a good traffic and parking experience for village guests so that businesses succeed and Birkdale Village can continue to be a prime destination for the Lake Norman community and its visitors. Thank you once again for your time. It's much appreciated.
Thank you. The next person who has signed up to speak is Purespoken. Mr. Pope, as you come, you have 3 minutes, and if you'll state your name for the record, we'd greatly appreciate it.
I'm Purespoken, and I'm a minor, so I can't really provide my address. I am against the rezoning of R22-01, and this is mainly because already Birkdale is it's dangerous. I was there yesterday, walking around, and the big area in the middle had fences around it. Any kid could easily get in there and get extremely hurt. This is nervous for me because as a frequent visitor of the village, I'm worried for these new developments when it seems that these past developments that they should be making are not being developed correctly and not being finished. I have noticed that there's been less police in these past few months than there have been usually. And again, it's scary because I feel like the village should be a safe place. Another thing is most of the customers there are kids around my age, teenagers. They don't have the cash to be shopping at these big stores that'll be popping up after this new rezoning. I know I don't have the cash to be shopping at a Gucci or Louis Vuitton. I like shopping with my friends at these cute little boutique stores that are just fun to shop in. They're small and it's easier to spend money at than, say, Louis Vuitton. Another thing is the grid system. All these new buildings and developments will put a strain on our electrical grid, and that is frankly quite nerve-wracking. As for I may be here when I'm older and my children, this will be crazy, because if it's developing now, it'll develop even more in the future. So if there's not proper things set in place to help increase the grid, if NAP is not helping develop the grid as these developments in Brookdale Village are increasing, then we might have frequent blackouts, and it's frankly quite nerve-wracking. Anyway, thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, for listening and being here, and yeah.
Thank you, sir. The next person who has signed up to speak is Sheila Wilson. Ms. Wilson, as you come, you have 3 minutes. If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Sheila Wilson, 8148 Evanston Falls in the Greens at Brookdale Village. I echo what others have said. We've all been up here before and have stated our case. I just wanted to reiterate, Brookdale Village is an incredibly special place to all of us. I moved to the state of North Carolina, having never set foot in the state, on the strength of the village alone about 3 years ago. It is absolutely my forever home. I frequently joke that I will be buried in my crawl space. That's a different zoning issue. The passion around the development from both sides is indicative of how much we deeply care about our village. I just wanted to state tonight that I am in favor of the planned development. I've enjoyed all of the updates NAP has made. I look forward to seeing what will come next. The strength of my property investment is contingent upon the success of the village, and I believe that they're moving in the right direction. Thank you for your careful consideration.
Thank you. The next person who has signed up to speak is Brian Rice. Mr. Rice, as you come, you have 3 minutes, and please state your name and address for the record.
Brian Rice, 17232 Bridgeton Lane, Huntersville. First, again, I'd like to thank the board. Thank you for listening to us over the last 6 months. I know personally, I've learned so much about the process, the protocol, and the people involved in this Brookdale Village rezoning proposal. And again, I ask that you say no to this proposal as written. And so I don't belabor the points made over the last 6 months. I'm only going to update 3 items. Number 1, update on that petition. As of Monday night, we have 1,805 signatures. These are voters, these are customers, and these are a concerned community that wants Brookdale Village to thrive. Number 2, please believe that we know the success of Brookdale Village relies on its convenience for the broader community, and not just the adjacent neighborhood. Improve the traffic, you'll improve the experience. Improve the parking, you'll improve the experience. And compel developers to finish what they start. Number 3, in 18 years of living next to Brookdale Village, I've many times heard about the beauty of the green space, the relevant businesses, and the quaint character and aesthetic that makes it so successful. Of course, I've also heard concerns around parking, and lately, around traffic. I hope that by saying no to this proposal, as it is, it sends a message that listening to customers and residents is the best way to do business in Huntersville. To sum up, I ask that you say no to this proposal as written. We support responsible rezoning that respects the character of the village and the town, while providing a good traffic and parking experience so that businesses succeed and Brookdale Village remains a prime destination for the Lake Norman community. Thank you again for the time and listening to our concerns.
Thank you. The next person who has signed up to speak is Carrie Edelstein and Casey Childers. Thank you. Okay, there you are. Thank you, sir, and you've given her your 3 minutes. So you have 6 minutes. If you'll please state your name and address for the record, it'd be greatly appreciated, and talk into the microphone.
Hi, everybody. I'm Carrie Edelstein. I live at 8810 Camberley Road, Huntersville 28078 in Birkdale Greens. I'm also not going to rehash. I probably won't use all my time. But I did want to talk about something that's come up over and over again, is this characterization that those of us who are in opposition to this particular rezoning proposal are afraid of development, afraid of growth, opposed to change. I actually really want to thank you and credit you, because I think all of you have really heard that that's not true. And I really appreciate that you've listened to us and realized that that's not true. I'm not sure everybody else in the room understands that that's not true. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about what change requires, because that's where my opposition is coming from. I've actually made a career out of embracing change. In fact, the reason I missed the March 6th meeting is that I was literally at a conference called Agents for Change. That's how important it is to my business. And the tagline for my own company is reimagine, reconsider, rethink, reinvent. That's the tagline of my own company. They're all change-related words. So I'm a big believer in change and innovation. But I also know that even when you're passionate about change and committed to it and everybody's on the same page, it's hard. Change is really, really hard, and it requires a lot of thought and a lot of discipline to do well. And there's this concept, I think anybody who's worked in engineering or tech will know this is maybe agile, right? But in other worlds, it might be called a beta test or a pilot test. But there's this concept in change, in business change, of start with something small, right? Start with some sort of pilot test and design, and then execute that design, and then learn, and then iterate. Design, execute, learn, iterate. Do that over and over again. And that's a path to really giving yourself a chance to build knowledge and build to success so that you don't start too big and fail and never get that second chance. And one of the things I actually recognize about all of this is that we have a pilot test happening right now in Birkdale Village. We have that first stage of reimagining Birkdale taking place today. We have our pilot test. And I think that's fantastic. I think that's a huge opportunity. And one of the things I believe in a pilot test is that you have to finish it. So my concern with this rezoning is that we're skipping design, execute, and learn, and we're going straight to iterate. We're going straight to that big, splashy final thing that maybe we want to accomplish, maybe not. But right now, as many of my neighbors have noted, we're not done with design. We're not done with execution, and we certainly haven't learned all of the lessons. That's why we're seeing unpermitted buildings still remaining unfinished on the green. If you actually walk by, I'm actually not one to generally complain about parking in Birkdale, because I walk to Birkdale most of the time, but you'll actually see cracks in the foundation of those unfinished buildings right now. You'll see cracks in some of the new things that have been built already. You'll see lots of unfinished and vacant different shops right now as everything kind of moves around. And that's not necessarily bad, but it is unfinished. And to me, the number one priority of a pilot is getting it done. And so I think we need to give this space to be done before we can move into a stage of iterating. You guys have asked me time and time again, what do I want to see? I want to see the pilot get done. I want to see us finish that. I want to see it design. And learning from what we've executed now so that we can sit down together and have a thoughtful and meaningful and responsible conversation of what does reinvention look like? Do we even need rezoning? What would be the ideal thing to have there? But we've skipped all these steps and we've gone right to the end. And so that's why I'm asking you tonight to deny this position for rezoning, not because I don't believe in development, but because I think there is a way better, more responsible, and more effective way to get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person who has signed up to speak is Mike Lampt and Rachel Leonard. And you are giving him your 3 minutes. So, Mr. Lampt, you have 6 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, thank you. Mike Lampt, I'm with North American Properties, 5142 Enniskillen Court at Suwanee, Georgia. I just want to go over a couple things and reiterate several things we've stated before here at the podium. But first of all, before I do that, I just want to thank, it's really difficult for people who are for something to come out and speak their minds and send emails. And I just want to thank everybody, all the supporters. I don't know a lot of you, but I want to thank every one of you for coming out. We really appreciate the support. One of the things we do is, it's our business to renovate and go into older projects and make them a little bit better. Nuveen Real Estate, who's here in Charlotte, owned Birkdale Village, and knowing our reputation, they brought us in. We partnered with them because they said, Birkdale's got the sales per square foot, which is the barometer on how healthy tenants are, was continuing to sink and getting lower and lower. There were a lot of vacant stores, so they asked us to come in and say, can you come up with a plan? We came up with that plan, and we completed the plan. There's been a lot of talk about unfinished business. I've mentioned it again, I'll mention it one more time. The fountain was operable before Christmas, and it was ready to go. We put the Christmas tree on it. Okay, that's where the Christmas tree is going to go every year. Unfortunately, when the Christmas tree got taken down and then when the ice rink was being removed, several pieces, several of the planks, the pavers, and some of the components of some of the jets were broken when the ice rink folks dismantled the ice rink. So we're waiting on parts. Parts are supposed to be here any week. So we should have that fountain operating by the end of the month. In regards to the two, what we call jewel boxes, but the small retail buildings, the last time I spoke, we did not have a permit for that Goodwurst building. They do have it now, okay? And now they're negotiating with a contractor, and they should be starting any week on that building. The second building, the one with the rooftop, it's a little more complicated, but I'll be happy to spend a couple seconds and talk about that. So the architect, number one, let me go back. The reason we build these small retail buildings the way we do, when they look unfinished, is because we want the retailers to brand. We want them to express their brand by their storefront design. Many times they want to move the storefront in a little bit because they want more covered patio. There's a lot of things that change when we design these buildings. So we let the tenants do that. So tenant's architect was talking to the county, and they had some preliminary plans about the roof deck and how the plans were coming together. And the county said, well, we're not sure, you might have to sprinkle the roof, okay, the second level. So and they recommended we do a test. So we hired a consultant, did a fire suppression test, and it came back, we don't need the fire sprinkler. So we gave that report back to the county. The county said, well, finish your plans, and then we'll review your occupant load, and then we'll make a decision. Well, at that time, the tenant said, we're not going to spend any more money until we have a firm determination by the county. So after a few weeks of negotiation with the tenant, we agreed, we told them whatever the county's final determination is, we'll pay the price. Okay, we'll pay whatever additional cost there is in order to do that. So now the tenant is in the process of completing their building plans. So that's kind of where we are with those two buildings. So it's not unfinished. I mean, we've completed every other building out there that we started. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person who is signed up to speak is Kathleen Rose. And Ms. Rose, help me here. Kabalakli? You're giving her your 3 minutes. Okay. Ms. Rose, if you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Kathleen Rose, 630 Davidson Gateway Drive, Davidson. I am here on behalf of the applicant, North American Properties, to address as an expert witness information regarding land use, real estate, economic development, and real estate markets. I've previously provided my credentials, so I won't bore you with all that. I also previously provided 2 technical memorandums to the board regarding issues around these points. So I only want to make really 4 points. One is about the fiscal health of the community as it stands, land use, real estate, markets, and economic development. Let's talk about fiscal impacts and fiscal health of the community. Tax balance and economic health. Your annual comprehensive financial report of June of this year noted that 73% of your assessed value is residential and 27% is commercial. And it states that while a majority, 73% of the town's assessed value is residential in nature, the town continues to work at diversifying the tax base with commercial growth. So the revaluation that everyone's just recently received demonstrates just the need for that continued focus on balance in terms of the real estate tax base. And in that regard, you have, per your 2045 land use plan, we'll move to land use, is really only 6 areas for this more intense commercial mixed-use development to occur: at Exit 23 at Rosedale, the park, and areas around the hospital, of course, downtown Huntersville, where we are now, and Exit 25, which is Burkdale and North Cross. Much of the development that has occurred in the last couple of years to help balance that tax base has been in the industrial development sector. So the goal here is to really look at how do we create other high-paying jobs and opportunities for improved customer traffic and the health of Burkdale through office development. And so with that, we move into just the real estate markets, and we provided some market assessment and the need for new office product in Huntersville, as was noted by the Lake Norman Economic Development Corporation. In fact, part of that is for newer, larger footprints in a signature building, as we've only really seen in Huntersville one new building built since 2015 in the office sector, and that was the medical office building on Highway 21. And so to point that out is in the office market, in fact, just yesterday, Colliers International came out with a report on fiscal impacts and valuation for the financial markets, and they noted that there's a clear bifurcation in newer built, highly amenitized, functional office product versus everything else. And that's where we are with office product for the town of Huntersville and the Lake Norman region in general, is that it's really a high demand for that. So with that, the best practices of office product needs to meet the needs of workers and companies post-pandemic. That's improved lighting, ventilation, outdoor space, all the amenities that Burkdale offers, including shorter commutes, healthy design, on-site amenities. And in fact, as a result, the Congress of New Urbanism, which is a nonprofit international group whose focus and mission is on walkable urbanism, is visiting Burkdale in May to highlight the importance of the future of this development, not only its past, but its future potential in terms of the development that's being proposed. So with that, we would hope that you would consider approving the plan to not only sustain, but to continue to be a model for development for these types of products into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person who signed up to speak is Susan Irvin. And Ms. Irvin, Mr. Robert Irvin, and you are giving her your 3 minutes. So there's 6 minutes. If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Susan Irvin, 19726 Zion Avenue. I also want to thank the board and everyone here, and really especially the people who have come out in support of this, which is so rare. The one thing I noticed is over the last 12 days, there has been a very positive momentum about this project from all over Huntersville. And we had people call our office. I think as of this morning, 17 people from all over Huntersville and the region had emailed the town board to voice support for this project. And the thing that occurred to me as I thought back through everything we've gone through, we've had at least 22 meetings. We started out with one process, then we were told that we should talk with the commissioners about the design. We could not do that according to the legal department with the processes that we had. The legal department felt that we could drop one process and have this decision made as a part of conditional zoning, and we did that because it was important to collaborate with the town leaders. And we went back to the design and came up with a a better design for the office building. I think back through those 22 meetings, and one thing I realized is that, you know, what you've been asked to do by the group that's opposing this has changed. We started out with the apartments in the hotel. Those were completely removed from the plan. There has always been a concern about compatibility. And really what that means is, if the office building were 4 stories high, would a parking garage be built? And the answer is no. And there's been a lot of reference to responsible development. Responsible development is building a parking garage that is free to the public and that is available to everyone in Huntersville. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter where you live, you can come to Burkdale and you can park in a free parking garage. In order to do that, you've got to have a signature office building that's very expensive that pays for that parking garage. That's a $90 million project. Now, this is something that the developers of Burkdale sat down and did after numerous meetings, community meetings, meetings with town leaders, and they said, what do we need to do for our entire community? And the answer was parking. Number one, parking. So what they decided to do was make Burkdale available to everyone in Huntersville. So it is going to change. If the parking garage is approved with the Class A office, the Class A office workers will come in the morning when the residents leave. It's opposite traffic, so it certainly doesn't, you know, hurt the existing situation. The developers would then have workers, the project would have workers there during the day to help the local businesses. And then they would go home in the afternoon and visitors and residents would come back, park free in the parking garage and be able to use Burkdale. So it opens up Burkdale to a much broader group of people than an exclusive group, many of whom don't need the parking garage because they can walk to Burkdale. So it does change Burkdale. It makes Burkdale a vibrant, mixed-use development that is a regional gem. And so the real question tonight before the board is not just what's best for Burkdale, it's what is best for the entire community. What is best for all of Huntersville? That's the question. And the answer to that is Class A office, as Ms. Rose explained, that helps individual taxpayers. It provides local businesses, it populates them during the weekdays and helps their overall ability to thrive. And there's so little of it in Huntersville. So building a Class A office building, which is not a 4-story suburban office building, and by doing that, building a parking deck that is available to everyone. Is it inclusive when people can't come park at Burkdale? That's the thing that we heard when people read the article in the Charlotte Observer on the 8th. I think that's the reason we've gotten the comments that we've gotten over the last 12 days and the emails to the town board and the people talking to me saying, Burkdale is cool now. I would love to go. I wish there were a parking garage. So these are the things that seem to be positive things for Burkdale and the town. A free public parking garage. The other thing is that parking garage frees up 150 spaces for the 50,000 square feet of office tenants that are there now. So those office tenants can actually park in the parking garage, and the people who are using it won't be taking up space.
Thank you. We will now, board, we are going to take a 10-minute recess. We've been sitting here for a bit. So we, at 7:20, we will come back. We're going to now bring the board back to order. Thank you. We have the majority of the board here. There we go. We'll now move to item 7, agenda changes. Are there any agenda changes this evening? Seeing none, is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion to adopt the agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Phillips.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Munger. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, we'll now move to consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Kovacs. There is a motion, there is a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, we now move. There are no public hearings this evening, so we now move to item 10A. Item 10A is to amend Code of Ordinance Article 94.46 entitled Livestock. Ms. Sloop?
Yes, good evening. These amendments were at the request of the town board, essentially clarifying the location for livestock shelters, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
We'll open it up for questions. A motion? I'm sorry, you got questions. Commissioner Kidwell?
Yes. Ms. Sloop, just to clarify, because I know how this can be perceived, but when HOAs say that you're not allowed to have livestock, that supersedes this change.
Correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Boone?
Thank you. I have no problem. We're basically talking about chicken coops here in the town of Huntersville, and I have no problem with this. My problem is with the rooster, and it's the rooster that keeps everybody up. And you're laughing. We've got roosters that we get calls in Huntersville. This expletive rooster's up every day at 5:45, daylight savings time or not. And is there anything in this motion, if we do make a motion, that we put the word roosters are not allowed?
The current ordinance and also the edits that are being proposed do not address roosters.
Can we mention it, though, as part of the motion?
A motion could incorporate additional edits.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Is there a motion? Commissioner Phillips?
I would like to make a motion to approve adopting the ordinance to amend Article 94.46 of the Huntersville Code of Ordinances entitled Livestock.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Commissioner Boone?
Would the commissioner entertain putting the word roosters are not allowed?
No.
Thank
And the reason is, as a chicken farmer, I am a chicken farmer, this is my jam. Sometimes you need a rooster to protect your flock, and we do already have noise ordinances regarding the sounds of animals that our police department gets called for.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, there is a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries and has been approved. Item 10B, this is petition R22-05, Oak Grove Hill, addition. Mr. Pete.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll enter the staff report into the record. 2205 is the request to make an addition of property to Oak Grove Hill. This is located generally at the intersection of Mount Holly Huntersville Road and Beatty's Ford Road. You can see the property in color there, just as a quick reminder of the 21 acres that is looking to join there for an additional 42 lots. The planning board at their meeting last month voted unanimously 8-0 to recommend approval as presented by staff. Are there any questions?
Are there any Commissioner Goodwill?
Yes, Mr. Pete, and you might have to bring in Mr. Trott for this. What is the plan for the 5 Points intersection? Are there other questions? How are you today?
Perfect.
Good.
The applicant, Mr. Bowman, is here as well, if you have any questions of him.
Have any questions for the applicant at this point, as we wait on Mr. Trott?
Sure. I'll throw
Commissioner Munger.
something to fill the air. One of the questions that, just out of curiosity, there's a connection that happens to Mount Holly Huntersville Road. At what point during the development process does that happen? And if it happens when I think it does, which is towards the end, can it be brought more forward to happen nearer to phase one?
Nate Bowman, 205 South Church Street. I forgot to do that last time. If the plan is approved by the board, usually it takes an engineer 2 to 3 months to prepare fully engineered drawings and submit them to the town. And at that point, for the town to review the plans, it's anywhere from 8 months to over a year. It's been what we've been dealing with, and actually, Charlotte Water has been more of a problem than land development approval with the town. So the current builder, D.R. Horton, plans to build the houses, take all the lots as soon as they're ready. There's no slow takedown schedule, and they build spec houses. We don't have a builder for the second phase because we don't have an approved plan. But once we do, my guess is 3 months to get the plans approved, let's say 8 months to 10 months for the final approval so we can move dirt, and then after that takes about a year. So there will be no holdup. The lots that D.R. Horton is the 104 lots they have now will be finished, will be ready for that. And again, from a marketing standpoint, the front door is really Mount Holly Huntersville Road. So we want to get that open as soon as possible so the traffic flows the way we want it to.
Is Mr. Trott available now?
Yes, he is.
Good evening, Mr. Trott. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening.
Commissioner Kidwell has a question for you.
Yes, thank you, Stephen. What is the plan for the 5-point intersection?
So the intersection of Beatty's Ford, McCoy, Overhill intersection, we're currently working on the plans, and the plans are to straighten out Beatty's Ford Road a little bit and have McCoy come into it and align more with the road on the west side, and then Overhill would be closed off right at that intersection.
Have we done, I guess we won't know, but any forecasting of the traffic that would come out of the phase one here, or where it would come out?
So there was I guess, traffic study scoping that was done as part of the development. Most of the traffic was projected to come out at Carver or out onto Mount Holly Huntersville Road.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Mr. Pete? Any questions for Mr. Bowman? Seeing none, is there a motion? All right, Commissioner Partee?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In considering the proposed conditional district rezoning application, R22-05, Oak Grove Hill addition, the town board recommends approval as it is consistent with the policies LU-2, LU-2.1, LU-3.1, LU-7.1, LU-10.2, LU-10.4, LU-12.3, EOS 1.1, EOS 4.1, EOS 10, and T2.3 of the 2040 Community Plan. The town board also makes the following recommendations. 1, approval of the block length modification for Block 16, Carver Avenue, for 958 linear feet, and Block 19, Cherry Dark Oak Lane, for 994 linear feet. Number 2, a 10-foot wide multi-use path should be provided along Mount Holly Huntersville Road as called for in the Huntersville Bike Master Plan. Number 3, add a note of willingness to annex Phase 3 into the town. Number 4, rezoning notes from the sheet SP-8 of the original plan must be added to the plan set. Number 5, all notes and data will need to be coordinated with the petition R23-04, which would remove the 6.89 acres from the original rezoning to permit this addition. Number 6, ensure maintenance of access easements so the BMPs do not encroach into the swim buffers. Number 7, all outstanding red line comments from the staff are addressed. It is reasonable and in the public interest to approve the conditional district rezoning plan because it is consistent with the objectives of both the Betty's Ford Road and Mount Holly Huntersville Road small area plan and the Betty's Ford Road corridor plan. It is also consistent with the plans for the surrounding area and meets the applicable provisions of the zoning ordinance.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Commissioner Phillips. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Boone?
Yes, I have a clarification on the motion. Mr. Partee, I heard you say the last one, T 2.2, as right after EOS 10, and then you said T 2.2, is that correct?
T 3.2.
Okay, I'd heard, okay, that's correct then.
T 3.2. Thank you.
Commissioner Munger?
So I recall this coming to us in January of 2020. It was probably one of my first significant votes that I remember being a part of. And one of the things I did at that time was actually drive down into that area and kind of take a look at it. And unfortunately, across the street is Charlotte, so in theory, you're not supposed to look at Charlotte because it's not Huntersville. But if you take everything into context, some of the houses, some of the structures that are in existence, this felt very much out of character with its surrounding neighborhood. And that's why I voted no in 2020. I was the lone vote no. It was 5-1 at that time, and I still think it's out of character with that surrounding area, so I will vote no on this.
Thank you, Commissioner Munger. Any other? Commissioner Kovacs?
I wasn't a part, sorry, I wasn't a part of the original vote, but when looking at this project, I have to agree with Commissioner Munger. I do think it's out of place with the high density. I understand adding this piece because it has so much green space lowers the density, but I'm more comfortable with 105 units that exist than adding in another 51. So I'm not for the project either.
Any other questions, comments? All right, we have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor? And all those opposed? All right. I will say that the lack of communication from this board to me, if I'm going to have to cast a tie vote, it would have been beneficial to have had some conversations ahead of time. With that said, this, Mr. Pete, clarify this for me, this sits in one of our activity notes, correct?
Let's see, I think I have a graphic that will show that.
Mm-hmm.
There is a portion of it that is. You
Mm-hmm.
can see that, not the majority of this particular phase request.
But if you have that node that doesn't cross over into Charlotte, based off of this map, it sits in the node.
That is true, but I would say more to the point that the nodes, of course, are not circular.
Correct.
They are, that is emblematic of what they should be. So they will mold with the property lines as the board sees fit. But if you were to pull it up north of Huntersville, Mount Holly, Huntersville, excuse me, then it would theoretically take in more of it, yes.
I was on the board when this was originally approved, and if memory serves, I did support this. It sat in that node with all the development that's happening around it. I guess this evening I will support the addition. I know that that was one of the things that Mr. Bowman originally had looked at and had hoped this parcel would have been brought in. It was not originally, so I will be supporting that this evening. And that motion is approved. We will now move to item 10B, and this is the R23-04 Oak Grove Hill. This is the revision. Mr. Pete?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to enter the staff report into the record and just go straight to the planning board recommendation. And what this entails is in order for the previous motion to work, you'll need to pull that 6 acres out of the original so that it'll follow suit with what you just reconfigured. The long-range plans, the 2040 plan, all of that are still supportive of the original vote that you just referenced from several years ago. And this does not change that by making it smaller.
Thank you.
Any questions?
We'll open it up for the board for questions. Is there a motion? I have a motion. Commissioner Partee?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In considering the proposed conditional district rezoning application R23-4 Oak Grove Hill revision, the town board recommends approval to remove 6.89 acres from Oak Grove Hill conditional district zoning in RCD. This recommendation for approval is conditioned upon final approval of the R22-05 Oak Grove Hill addition. The approval of R2205 would facilitate the removal of the 6.89 acres and would not impact the original Oak Grove Hills consistency with adopted policies as outlined in R18-0-10A. It is reasonable and in the public interest to approve the conditional district rezoning plan revision because it is consistent with the plans referred in the R18-10A, and the applicable provisions of the zoning ordinance can be adequately addressed.
There is a motion. Is there a second? Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We now move to item 10D, and this is petition R22-01, rezoning request by DDRTC, Birkdale Village. Mr. Richards.
Good evening, Brian Richards for the planning staff. At this time, I'd like to enter my staff report to the record. We're here to present petition R2201, Birkdale Village. Back in February 6th, the board remanded the project back down to the planning board. That meeting took place on February 28th. Just for a quick recap, here we are at Birkdale. What we currently have up for the rezoning is a 150,000 square foot office space and the replacement of the existing 25,000 square feet of commercial, which is Barnes & Noble. You can see there the concept plans previously we had the 3 buildings on the bottom right. Those were removed, and we're just sticking with the office building and retail, commercial with the associated parking deck in the rear. They are requesting a modification for the building height. Staff does not support that, as we feel that is not in keeping with the spirit of the ordinance. You can see here a profile of the building, shows up to 110 feet in height. Here's some pictures of the Birkdale as it sits today. These are potential elevations, including the original that showed the sizing and massing and scaling of the building the building elevated in height. Below on the larger picture there on the left is a potential representation of what could be built. Here's some other perspectives of what that future building could look like. Community plan has a number of items that do support the project. Staff does feel it is a good project, but due to the change in course as this moved through the public process before, we're going to take a position of not supporting the project. And here are some items of the community plan that do not support the project. I'm going to go to the planning board recommendation. Actually, the planning board motion was for approval. Unfortunately, that did not pass. The motion failed with a 2-5 vote. Planning staff does not find that this is reasonable in the public interest to amend the zoning ordinance because the building height modification requested under section 11.47 of 110 feet it substantially exceeds the maximums for the urban workplace and shop-front building heights, and is not in keeping with the spirit of the ordinance regulations. And I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
We'll open it up for questions for staff. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I believe the petitioner is here as well.
Yes.
Are there any questions for the petitioner, for the applicant? Okay. Commissioner Kovacs.
I have questions for the applicant. During the meetings with residents, with the original plan was, I'm trying to think of how to word it because it's based off of the comments I heard, was were the things that were taken out what was important to be taken out to the residents, or was this just a culmination of after speaking to everybody?
The removal of the multifamily in the hotel?
Yes.
That was basically in communication with everybody.
Okay, because I actually, okay. Is this current height the absolute lowest height you would be able to go for the office building?
One of the important things about the Class A is the type of tenant it's gonna bring. We feel like the village deserves a high quality type tenants who are willing to pay, a little bit more in rent because it's got to support a parking deck. Therefore, you've got to have some density, you've got to have some height, and you've got to have a really good building, and a building that a high-profile tenant's gonna be proud to be in. And that's the key, is that, they want a name on the building and all that. So they want to be, when their customers come, they want to be proud that they're in this building and not a low-rise office like we currently have.
Okay, that leads me just to my last question.
Do you want to answer so the question was, would they consider a height modification?
Lower than what was,
Lower than what was requested. And I think what you're saying is you can't do a 4-story, and I'd already explained that it doesn't pay for a parking garage. So the question is there something that you could do that would pay for a parking garage? I mean, the cost of the parking garage is in the initial structure. It doesn't matter how tall it is. So at some point, you've got to hit that initial amount.
Right. I mean, if there was a request to take a floor off, I think we can consider that and think through that, yes.
I just wanted to ask clarification because the parking deck is one of the things that has been the biggest thing that's confusing me. Sometime in the past 6 months, I can't remember. You guys had stated that the parking deck needs to be rebuilt no matter what, correct? Due to how long?
The existing parking decks, all 4 existing parking decks, are need some repair because they've not been maintained at all. So there is some repair to be done on all of the decks.
Okay, so it's just repair. The whole thing's not to be replaced?
What we were saying is that it wouldn't make, on that particular deck, it wouldn't make any sense to repair it and then tear it down to build a new one. So it made sense then, if the office building came and we had to build a new deck, we would demolish that existing deck.
That was my
build a new
confusion.
one.
I thought you
Yes,
had to
ma'am.
demolish it and then rebuild it anyway.
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Madam
Commissioner
Mayor, I'll
Boone.
give it a shot. In considering the proposed rezoning petition R22-01 Burkdale Village, the town board recommends denial based on the amendment being inconsistent with the Huntersville 2040 Community Plan Policy, Land Use 5.1, Land Use 11.1, Land Use 11.2, and LU 12.3. It is not reasonable in the public interest to amend the zoning ordinance because the building height modification request under section 11.4.7 K, to increase the building height to 110 feet exceeds the maximum of urban workplace, which is 45 feet, shop front buildings, and does not maintain the spirit of the regulation. Previous height modification granted under section 11.4.7K were for several feet were added to one story, and some involve unusual topo to demonstrate the modifications maintained in the spirit of the regulation. The project does not involve any unusual topo setbacks.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Commissioner Munger.
So I wasn't going to speak tonight. Felt like I just put my vote, but I've always been in the habit of trying to explain why I vote the way I do. And what I wanted to do was kind of walk you through what my process is so that maybe you can understand where I'm coming from. For me, one of the, and I'm sorry, my notes are all over the place because I was trying to write this haphazardly. For me, when something comes to the board, the first thing I do is find a path to yes and ask for it. That's what we should do. That's what I feel like we should do. My process might be different from other people's up here, but I always feel like you have to, whatever comes forth, you have to try and figure out what are the merits to it, what parts don't you like, what parts do you like, and if there are parts you don't like, ask for specific modifications to those parts so that you can get to a reasonable path of yes. And for me, initially, and it's changed over time, but initially one of the three things I heard were traffic flow, parking, building height. And I would argue that those are still kind of the core values that we're talking about here. So when the hotel was pulled, when the apartments were pulled, and the parking garage remained, in my opinion, that addressed parking, a very core issue that everyone said, we need more parking, we need more parking. And in my opinion, the developer said, okay, here's parking. The next one gets a little bit more complicated, traffic flow. One of the specific things I've asked from the developer, and I believe that they would agree to it, is to contribute $2 million to the extension of Townley to North Cross. Also, to extend the right turn lane coming out of Lindholm onto Sam Fur. These are very key things for traffic flow. Is the $2 million enough to pay for the entire extension? Absolutely not. I believe Brian would probably tell you it's probably going to cost somewhere between $10 and $15 million to do that. So $2 million doesn't answer everything, but $2 million is not nothing. It's something. So they went to that point and addressed that. The third issue, unfortunately for me, wasn't something that bothered me. Building height, to me, when someone sees a building from a distance and they say, what's that? They come. They come in, they bring dollars with them, they spend their money locally, they do really interesting things. And from my perspective, Class A office space, a building that size, is a place where I'm probably going to work. And the jobs that a building like that bring are significant paying jobs. And so I have to look at it and say, that would be a significant boost to the bottom line of our town, increase our tax base, increase sales tax. So I acknowledge that I may be alone on the building height. That's why you have 6 people up here. They have different opinions, and we're all allowed to have different opinions. I do want to say, and I should have said this at the beginning, I absolutely appreciate all of you showing up, all of you caring, and I appreciate you all expressing your opinions, even if they're not in agreement with mine. This is involvement. This is beautiful. You absolutely should be involved in other things. One of the things we went to earlier this week, and Mr. Gammon spoke about, is Colonial Pipeline. Spilled over 1 million gallons. Imagine if all of you came out here and were like, hey, they're going to release some of the remnants of this into our streams. These are things that matter as well. So Don't lose that fire. Please continue with things like that. The biggest problem for me with traffic flow is we're held hostage by NC DOT. I'm not a fool. I drive down I-77. I see that exit coming in Sanford trying to go to Birkdale Village. It's a disaster. It's an absolute mess. And everything that happens on Sanford, you're just like, I'm constantly stuck in traffic. My problem is we as a town cannot be held hostage by NC DOT. Their inability to provide us the correct infrastructure and adequate infrastructure to be able to get traffic flow and get residents like you in and out of Birkdale Village, man, I'd love to go to NCGA and just say, what in the heck are you thinking? How can you not expand that road? I'm frustrated. I don't go on that road because I don't live down there. I can only imagine how frustrating it is for you to be on that road. It's insanity. And any member of NCGA, if you're listening, fix the road. People here want to be able to get in and out of places. It drives me insane. So I feel your passion there. That's probably an odd ending, but that kind of hits all the points. I wanted it to happen. It probably won't, but I wanted you to at least understand the thought process I had to get to this point. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Commissioner Munger. Are there any other comments? Commissioner Kidwell.
I want to thank all sides for coming out over the past 6 months. I especially want to point out that we had a young man, Pierce, today come up here and speak. And for someone from our teenage population to come up here and talk about how they feel and specifically advocate for something, that takes a lot of courage. That is not easy. I know as an adult, when I first started getting up in front of people and speaking, it was not easy. And we all get up there. I mean, sometimes we stumble and we think, get a little sweaty. I still do it up here. So, young man, if you're still out here, I think you are, nice job, all right? Just want to tell you that. I want to thank the board up here for looking at every possibility, looking at different ways, and talking to each other on that. And that's all I'm going to say on it.
Anyone else? Commissioner Partee?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In working and speaking with the residents of the Birkdale community, the Greens, been doing a lot of research because this is a tough decision. The Charlotte Business Journal printed a story on January 15th, and the headline was, Huntersville leads open door ranking of hottest Charlotte area zip code. Landing number 1 is 28078 in Huntersville, which is about 15 miles north. Uptown Charlotte features range of family-friendly amenities and activities. That was Birkdale, and that is Birkdale. And as I said before, that was the hook that grabbed my wife and I. And now that I live in Lattice Springs, and as I drive to Town Hall, there are at least 6+ active construction sites that are either within the process of clearing, excavating, or building within a 2-mile radius. Statesville Road, Alexandria Road, Hambright, Mount Hunley, Huntersville Road, Hambright, Beatties Ford Road, which is the Aspire High School, Mount Holly, Huntersville, between Hambright and Reese Boulevard. There's a construction site there. Now we got Birkdale Commons and Sanford right across the street. Huntersville's transformation is a major hub of business and bedroom communities which has exploded. Hopefully this growth generates a tax base that can ease the pain of our upcoming assessments to all our homeowners. Now, Birkdale Village is a beacon of attraction for all individuals living in Huntersville and the surrounding towns. After shining for approximately 21 years, upgrades is necessary. Upgrades are necessary to replace the damaged, weather-worn structures that are being there now. That's a given, even though we upgrade our homes. But reading all the emails from all those that are for and against North American Properties, I made it a point to spend a lot more time in Birkdale. My wife and I, we always patronize the restaurants, Ease Fusion, Red Rock, Smokes, Bonefish Grill. But now, over the past several months, I spend a lot of time in the Starbucks in Barnes & Noble. Most of you know that I spend there and I do my little work there. I bring my little workstation. Well, one day I was sitting in Barnes & Noble and I spotted a young lady that I recall came up here and spoke before us in October. And I watched her sitting over there in the high back chairs, reading a book, tranquil, peaceful. And when I got up to leave, I didn't say anything to her, I didn't acknowledge her. It just dawned on me that I should go back and recall her statement to us at the board meeting. Thank you, Janet, for taking absolute notes, great notes. But I pulled the young lady's comment to us. Her name was Audra Collins. She lives at 8904 Sutherland Drive. Said, I am here to talk about the development in what would be Barnes & Noble and Dick's Sporting Goods. I am mentally ill, and during my depression, Barnes & Noble was my home away from home. When I needed to leave from my house, that's where I go. I would take an Uber. I would have my parents drive me there. Barnes & Noble got me into reading, and reading was my escape from school when I was bullied. It got me into writing. I just don't know what I would do without it, honestly. It definitely made a change in my life. I've lived here for 23 years out of my 25, and I can't even remember when it was built. That's how long it has been. I don't know what I would do without it. I hope you vote against it. Now, mind you, in my 30 years as an investigator, I have a hard edge. I've been in a room with murderers, rapists, to get confessions and admissions. This young lady's comment, for her the courage, like Commissioner Kidwell said, the courage of our youth to come up and speak before us, to articulate their concern is profound. Audra's comment projected an innocent that hit me to my core, but also close to my family when a child is on the spectrum. For Audra to stand up there in front of the room of strangers and expose her struggles takes a lot of courage and strength. And that penetrated me personally. So therefore, that's why listening to Audra, I hear you. Sometimes the loudest voice in the room could be the most silent voice. And that's why I'm voting to deny American Properties. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Kovacs.
I wanted to kind of point out what Commissioner Munger said. There were the three big things, parking, and I've said it to everybody that I've talked to, parking, traffic, and the height. All three of those were very important to me. Knowing that we could get some money towards, could potentially get money towards a road is, I thank you and applaud North American Properties if that's what you were willing to do. I do see the need for parking, and knowing that if this doesn't pass, the parking garage will not get extended is really unfortunate. But I also do hope that because North American Properties has stated how important the customers are in their experiences, there might be a way to find other ways to improve the parking. But the height is just something that I just could not couldn't swallow. So while this has been a 6-month-long journey, I appreciate all sides and all of your input and staying engaged.
Anyone else? Commissioner Boone?
Yes, ma'am. I've been listening to my other commissioners here, and I just want to echo what they said. Thank you for getting engaged in this. A lot of work's been done to see if we could get this passed. It was a conditional rezoning. We could put conditions on this, but speaking amongst ourselves, we really couldn't agree to the height, the traffic. I think the bridge over to Rubbermaid would probably be the key to the traffic situation in this. And then the parking deck is almost a no-brainer for this thing to be successful. But I'd just like to say thank you to my fellow commissioners and the audience for being engaged in this, and thank you for your input.
Anyone else? Commissioner Phillips?
So I wasn't going to talk. I wasn't going to actually vote. This has been the worst experience being a commissioner. When your family has veiled threats made against their business, when people say that if you vote a certain way, they're going to accost you in public, and you have 2 nieces that you like to take out, it puts the fear of God in you, because I never want to do anything in my life that hurts the other people that I love. However, as the only person up here that's involved with small business, the Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce has spoken out in favor of this project. We've had small businesses in Burkdale speak out in favor of it. And I, in good faith, cannot support other small businesses having the same access that I have to customers, because I believe in supporting our economy, diversifying our tax base. And unfortunately, what we're going to see is, if you haven't already looked already, the revals from the county are going to wreck people. They're going to be the reason people move, because while people say my home increased, yes, your value did increase, but so did your tax bill, and so did everything else in your life. I think this whole ordeal has just been a shame. I appreciate the people that have spoken out, but I feel like we're not seeing the forest through the trees right now. And my concern is, a year from now, when this board has complaints about parking and other things going on, how are they going to address it when they've just killed the solution? I'm the only native sitting up here too, so I've seen progress, I've fought progress, but sometimes you got to take the good with the bad and look towards the future. And I'm very sorry to those small businesses that did reach out and advocate, and I hope that they can survive going forward in the future, because they're businesses that I patronize myself. So just felt like I'd put that out there, because I was going to abstain, but my parents have told me they'll take the hits with me, because they don't want me to feel like I can't do my job because I'm so protective of them.
Right. Everyone has had an opportunity to speak. There is a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor of the motion? And those opposed? That motion does carry.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will take a 5-minute break so that those of you who would like to leave may leave. All right, folks, we are back. Yes. Thank you to sticking around with us. We are now going to move to petition TA 22-16, petition TA 22-16, multifamily use, one building, one lot. Mr. Semino, I know.
We had the public hearing. As I mentioned at the public hearing, the Ordinances Advisory Board did recommend approval. The situation is in these four districts, zoning districts, neighborhood residential, neighborhood commercial, town center, and highway commercial, we permit by right of one apartment building on one lot, but our development standards are the same whether it's a 4-unit apartment or a 200-unit apartment. So to address that, the proposal is to, in those four zones, to remove multifamily homes as a use permitted by right and then put it as a use permitted with conditions. In the conditions, we're going to have a staggered setback so that the more dense you are, the further the setback is. And it starts at 5 feet, goes to 10, 20, 30, and to 40 feet, and it's based on the density. And this is to protect the single family, the duplexes, and the townhomes that are adjacent to the larger multifamily units. The Planning Board did recommend approval of this, as well as the HOAB, and happy to answer any questions the Town Board has.
Jack, I want to take a second and thank you for all of the work that your staff and HOAB and Planning Board have done on this. I think this is a good step from my perspective for Huntersville. And I will open it up for a motion, if there is one. Or I would like to introduce the Planning Board members because I didn't do that earlier. Would you like to introduce yourselves? No. There's people. And Jeff's not.
Madam Mayor, I have a motion.
All right, thank you so much.
In considering the proposed amendment TA 22-16, the board recommends approval based on amendment being consistent with policies LU 7.2, LU 0.9, and LU 11.1 of the Huntersville 2040 Community Plan. It is reasonable in the public interest to amend the zoning ordinance because the amendment will help to protect the privacy of the existing residential development from one building, one lot, multifamily infill development.
Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Commissioner Porti. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? We'll now move to item 10F. Mr. Semino, this is you as well. Petition TA 22-17 to amend the zoning ordinance section 7.53.
So enter staff report into the record. This amendment is a result of us modifying subdivisions from a quasi-judicial process to a administrative process. The provision that allowed us to increase setbacks used to be a requirement, and now it was been modified to a guideline. So to address that, we are recommending that the buffers be increased whenever there is a development that is twice the density of adjoining residential development. So it goes from a 20-foot setback to a 40-foot setback. We have changed the wording. The Ordinances Advisory Board did recommend this amendment. And we start off with 20 feet in the minimum town center zone when adjoining town center zone and where the density is less than 2 times. And in all other cases, it's 40 feet. The recommendation is to reword that so that we capture, if you're adjoining vacant land, you don't have 40 feet, it's 20 feet. So it's saying the same thing, just in a different order. So the Planning Board and staff recommends option 2. And it says 40-foot minimum where density is 2 times greater than the existing development except in town center zone. When adjoining town center zone, in all other cases, 20-foot minimum is required. So that is the recommendation. Planning Board did recommend approval of that language, as does the staff, and we are happy to answer any questions the Town Board has.
All right, Commissioner Kovacs.
Okay, so town center to town center development is 20 feet. But anything in TC that abuts neighborhood residential or any other kind of zoning is automatically 40 feet, correct?
If it's double the density, that's exactly right. And that's a specific request from the Ordinances Advisory Board. We initially said if you're in the town center zone, you don't have to have, it's a 20-foot setback regardless. And the Ordinance Advisory Board felt like, well, there's a lot of neighborhood residential and lower density around the town center, and we needed to protect that. So that's why the language is as it proposed.
That can be disturbed or undisturbed, it just has to be a buffer.
It is intended to be undisturbed. If it does get disturbed, it has to be replanted, and we have the planting requirements so that you get a complete visual buffer.
So if it's on a vacant lot, what's the buffer going to be if it's abutting a vacant lot?
It would be 20 feet if it's a vacant lot. If it's a residential lot and it's twice the density, then it will be 40 feet.
So then, just a hypothetical, I guess, if I'm building Plan A and it's against a vacant lot, I only have to do a 20-foot buffer, but then someone coming in to build something else might end up having to do the 40-foot buffer because they're kind of the last one to come in?
Well, it's always that way, right? So whatever that land use is adjoining you, then that's what's going to apply. So if you're adjoining vacant land, you have the 20-foot, but if you adjoin property that is half the density of what you've got, then you're going to have a 40-foot. I've got slides that I could show if we want to go into details about how this would work.
Sorry, I mean, I watched on HOB, I feel like forever, but, okay.
Any, Commissioner Munger?
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to go to the penalty box for this one because it didn't occur to me until just now. 160D and the harmony requirements, do they have any effect on this? Are they able to bypass any of this buffer due to it having like the?
No, this is a buffer requirement, so this isn't architecturally changing anything. So
okay, so none of that can override any of this.
Just a buffer.
All right. Sorry. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, is there a motion? Commissioner Boone?
Madam Mayor, I have a motion to approve TA 22-17, staff's option 2, based on the amendment being consistent with policy LU.11 and DT-2 of the 2040 community plan, of the Huntersville community plan. It is reasonable and in the public interest to amend the zoning ordinance because it helps protect the unique character of the existing housing stock.
Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Munger. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And a 5-1 vote. All right, we will now move to item 10G, and this is a resolution on Gibson Park Phase 2 property acquisition. Mr. Trott?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Here tonight to talk to you about a remaining property to be acquired on the Gibson Park Phase 2 project. So if you don't know where that is, it's a little south of Town Hall, east of the railroad tracks between Church Street and our Garden District. The remaining parcel to be acquired is number 7. You can see it here. This shows all the parcels that have to be acquired, and this is the remaining one that needs to be acquired. It's a relatively small area that needs to be acquired. It's 71 or 74 square feet of drainage and utility easement, and then we have about 485 square feet of temporary construction easement that has to be acquired. Been trying to contact the property owners. We understand that one of the property owners is deceased. Trying to get the documentation on that, but the other one, we've tried to reach out to the family for about 6 months. Our acquisition consultant has gone out there in person, sent regular mail, text messages to one family member that has responded, not the owner, but one of the family owners did respond. We've called and emailed with them over the past 6 months. Our latest correspondence that we sent out was via certified mail. Sent certified mail to the property owner's current address, the one listed in GIS, the actual parcel address, which we believe are being rented to some tenants that aren't part of the owners. So just asking for, if we can move forward if we're unable to contact those owners, since it already has been 6 months of time.
Questions? Commissioner Munger?
If memory serves, we actually approved this without the use of eminent domain some time ago, and you went through this entire process of 6+ months trying to track down the owner, relatives, anyone who would respond, and so we are literally at the moment of last resort.
Yeah, I would say we have not heard from either of the property owners. Again, we believe one is deceased. A family member of the property owners has reached out, but we haven't heard from that family member, and it's been over a month.
Thank you.
We're going to keep trying. They could all of a sudden call tomorrow, and if we can, that'd be great, and we'll work with them to settle. But at this point, we're just asking for this option if we're unable to do that.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
I have a motion, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve a resolution of the Town of Huntersville Board of Commissioners to acquire property, including the use of eminent domain for the construction of Gibson Park Drive Phase 2.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? Commissioner Kidwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Stephen, I drove out there this morning, or this afternoon. No one was there. I reached out to a couple people in the area. I was told another family may know them. They live up the street, I believe at a 201 address. 202 Gibson, but no one was there as well. You guys know how I feel about eminent domain, so I can't support it, but I would say if you can get there and talk to somebody possibly at 202 who knows the family, that might be helpful.
Commissioner Partee?
Yeah, Mr. Trott, who are now paying the taxes on the property, and do we have that of record? And is the property up on their taxes? Are they delinquent or not delinquent?
Don't have that information in front of me. Could look on Polaris and see if they have or not.
So in other words, the property is not in tax delinquency?
Not that I'm aware of.
That you're aware of? And if it was in delinquents, then can we access it, or can we? It's Mecklenburg County, but is there any way we can grab it off the rolls?
So we'd have to go through the foreclosure process with the county. They would essentially put it up for foreclosure if there were back taxes, and we could bid on it.
But we would foreclose on the entire property, not a corner or a piece of it.
Yeah, correct.
Any other questions? Seeing none, there is a motion. There is a second. All those in favor? 3. Those opposed? It is a 3-3 split. I would say, Stephen, contact the folks at 202. Also check in on the foreclosure stuff just to see. Would like for us to exhaust one more chance, exhaust all other options, and then if we are not successful, we move forward. So I will support this motion. Okay, thank you. All right. There is nothing else on our agenda. We will now move to mayor and commissioner reports. Commissioner Phillips.
I'd just like to congratulate our town clerk, Janet, on winning her Sunshine Award. And I'll leave it at that because I know she doesn't like fanfare, but I'm very proud of you.
Commissioner Boone.
I was going to say the same thing, but I don't have a report.
Commissioner Kovacs.
Y'all know I do. So, for the Lake Norman Chamber, Tuesday, March 21st, 12 p.m. to 1:30 is going to be a lunch and learn presented by Donna Moffett. LLC Accountants and Consultants. The topic is Business Success Planning, What's Next? That'll be located at the Chamber in the conference room. Space is limited for 30 in-person attendees, but you can also do Zoom as well. March 22nd, from 3 to 4, seminar with author Hardy Smith. Hardy Smith, author of Stop the Nonprofit Board Blame Game, held at the Chamber in the Randy Marion Boardroom. Both in-person and Zoom options are available. This is a must-try for anyone on a board or involved in a nonprofit. Also, Wednesday, March 22nd, 5:30 to 7 p.m., Huntersville Connection Social and Book Drive. The Lake Norman Chambers Huntersville Connection will be hosting a social and book drive at Angels and Sparrows Center in Huntersville. Please visit the website for details on what books you can help bring to support Angels and Sparrows. And lastly, Thursday, March 28th from 5 to 7 is the Business After Hours hosted by Allen Tate Realtors. Come join us for springtime business after hours at one of our real estate firms, Allen Tate and Cornelius. Food, beverages, and some great networking opportunities will be there at 19460 Old Jeton Road in Cornelius.
Thank you. Commissioner Kidwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. CRTPO public comment period is now open. It is on our website. I would encourage anyone who's still listening to go there and look at the projects that are on there and give your support for them or not. So all input is welcome. Also, the Carbon Reduction Act funds that was presented in front of CRTPO contained the tunnel under 21, the Greenway, that was approved. And Commissioner Phillips would not bring this up, but I will, but Rural Hill is having a little birthday party this Saturday for 2 Scottish Highland cows. Now, I don't know if you know what a Highland Scottish cow looks like, but they're damn adorable. And I would highly recommend you go out there. There's going to be balloons, and there's going to be cows. And cows and balloons, I mean, what more could you want? So go out there and be a part of it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Partee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do not have any report to state at this time. I want to congratulate Janet on her Sunshine Award also. I think Commissioner Boone had come to me and said that we were going to discuss changing the commissioner's report and the mayor's report to the front of the, at the head of the meetings. Because anyway, I think that might be appropriate sometime, Commissioner Boone. And as always, if you need gun locks, please go to our app and request gun locks from our police department. And as usual, if you have the opportunity, give it to our nonprofits. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Munger.
What I'm about to say should astonish everyone. I have no report. As always, if you have an opportunity to give, please consider supporting our local nonprofits.
So you all do not have a report. I have 2 pages. So I will try to move quickly. First item is that the MTC is meeting this Wednesday evening at the Government Center in Charlotte. There's 5 informational session items, but no action will be taken. Right now, the Mayor's Fitness Challenge is happening, and we're off to a great start. We kicked it off last week with the Green on the Greenway, and I would like to thank those of you in this room who came out and walked with me as we kicked that off on last Friday, but there's going to be other opportunities to collect extra points. First one is Wednesday of this week on March 22nd. There will be 2 opportunities for pickleball right here at Holbrook Park. The first one is 6:30 to 7:30, and the second one is 7:30 to 8:30. You cannot participate in both. You have to pick one or the other. And then the next one is this Friday, March 24th, from 5 to 7, and it is bowling with the board. So I hope everyone who is here and watching comes out and bowls with the board this Friday at spare time, 5 p.m. to 7. And then again on Saturday, March 25th, there is a session of kickboxing at Rock Box, Huntersville, from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. You do need to pre-register for the free classes and sessions, and you can do that at huntersville.org. Just search for the Mayor's Fitness Challenge 2023. And I would like to take a second and congratulate Huntersville's very own Sam James for being awarded the Robert T. Cashin Business Person of the Year Award at the Lake Norman Chamber annual meeting and gala. It was wonderful to see him honored that way. I attended last week the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance Legislator Reception. That was last Wednesday in Raleigh, and had an opportunity to speak not only with several legislators, but also with area businesses. I had conversations with companies like Novant Health, American Airlines, et cetera. We discussed microtransit, workforce housing, we discussed skills needs for jobs, and it was really great to get their perspective on these issues. And then the last thing I would tell you is that this Friday, I will be attending the Connect Beyond. It's the second meeting of Connect Beyond, which is the plan, the holistic transportation plan for the whole region that focuses on greenways, sidewalks, roads, bus service, microtransit, you name it. If it moves you around, it's part of the package. So I look forward to participating with Connect Beyond and bring back information to you. Commissioner Munger?
Yeah, I'm curious on the kickboxing. Can you like register to punch a commissioner? Just, you know.
No, you cannot.
Just curious.
It has.
Asking for a friend, really.
Really? Okay, no, we're not getting into that.
Got a ring.
With that, that's the close of my report. I would like to say thank you to those of you who stuck around to the very end. It's greatly appreciated. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
And there's a motion, there's a second. All those in favor?
Make it a tie.
Good night.